I used to be the person she leaned on. Now I am the person she steps around. That sticky note on my refrigerator might as well have been a funeral notice. Bright pink paper. Emily's perfect handwriting. 23 tidy words that broke 12 years of marriage. She was taking 2 weeks with Ryan. She needed space. She wanted me to respect her journey. Signed off with a neat little heart. I stood there in boxers and yesterday's work shirt, hanging on to my morning coffee like it was the last normal thing I had. It was, "My name is Jake Miller, and I fix cars." It is not glamorous. It is honest. My hands carry stains no soap can touch. My back complains from crawling under frames. Most days, I smell more like water displacement formula number 40 than anything you would buy at a department store counter. Emily used to say she loved that about me, the straight truth of it. That was before yoga pants, green smoothies, and personal trainers named Ryan showed up. The house felt like a staged model home, the kind real people never actually live in. Too neat, too arranged. Vanilla candles still burned in the living room, that heavy sweetness mixing with the ghost of her expensive perfume. The security cameras she pushed for last month finally made sense. She had built herself a runway, not a conversation. Out the kitchen window, our lawn looked magazine perfect. Across the fence, Mrs. Jenkins had her blinds cracked just enough to take in the show. In a place like Cedar Grove, gossip outruns facts. By lunchtime, folks would be whispering that Emily Miller ran off on her mechanic husband with a younger guy. I reached behind the stack of coffee filters and pulled out the secret phone I had already found. Amateur hour. I almost laughed. The cheating spouse hidden phone would be a joke if it did not hit you square in the gut. The messages were not a movie. They were real. They were raw. 3 months of explicit texts. Selfies where she wore my favorite flannel shirt. Hotel confirmations that made my stomach climb into my throat. His name was Ryan Cole, 28 years old, personal trainer at a place called Peak Performance Fitness. He drove a leased Tesla. He specialized in helping married women find their inner goddess. His social media was a conveyor belt of shirtless progress shots and quotes about living your truth. He used the word literally, like a spice shaker, and treated protein powder like a food group. I scrolled until my thumb ached. Every message was a small blade. Emily, my practical, no-nonsense wife who used to mock influencers, was now firing off hard eyes emojis and planning quiet weekends away. The same woman who once joked that Ryan looked like a plastic doll with father issues was calling him her soulmate. My phone buzzed. A text from my business partner, Chris Thompson. Saw Emily's car at the airport. Everything okay? I typed back, never better. She is on a journey of self-discovery. What kind of journey? He wrote, the kind that ends with divorce papers? The house phone rang. I let the answering machine grab it. Emily's voice came through, breathless, hurried. Jake, I know you are there. Pick up. We need to talk like adults. I am not the villain. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. I just had the courage to act. Courage. That is what she called leaving a note and walking out on her husband. I poured another coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we mapped out vacations, asked whether we should have children, and argued about money when work slowed down. Now the wood grain looked like a record of every wrong turn I had taken. How long had she been staging this? Which of our friends already knew? How many pitying looks did I miss while I was busy trying to be steady? The garage has always been my place. Problems show themselves under good light. You listen. You diagnose. You fix. No mind games. No journeys. Just cause and effect. I drove to Miller Auto Repair on the edge of town and felt my shoulders drop when the bay doors rolled up. Chris waited with the guys, Luis and Derek, men who have stood next to me for years. They understand loyalty. They also know when to let a man keep his own business. Boss, Chris said, not quite meeting my eyes. Heard about Emily. News travels fast. Mrs. Whitaker came in for an oil change and said she saw Emily loading suitcases at 5 o'clock in the morning. Of course she did. Mrs. Whitaker probably sleeps with the porch light on and a police scanner humming. So what is the plan? Luis asked. I looked at my crew. Chris with his beer belly and endless run of terrible jokes. Luis, who can diagnose an engine with his eyes closed, just by listening. Derek, grinding through every weekday to put 2 kids through college on a mechanic's paycheck. These are my people. Not Emily's wine and cheese circle, who treated me like the hired help in my own home. The plan is we work, I said. Same as always. I said it like I believed it, and maybe a piece of me did. The rest of me knew the ground had already shifted. Emily made her choice. Now I had to make mine. Was I going to play the victim in my own life, or be something different altogether? By lunchtime, I had 17 missed calls from Emily. I deleted them without listening. Then I stuffed a small duffel bag and headed to the week-to-week room above Frank's boxing gym. The place smelled like old sweat, lost decisions, and industrial cleaner. It was not home. It was plain. Right then, plain was something I could trust. The walls were thin enough that I could track every grunt and thud from the heavy bag below. I heard the bell, the shuffle of feet, and Frank barking instructions at wide-eyed kids who thought fighting was their one ticket out of nowhere. For me, that noise worked like a clock, steady, honest, and loud enough to drown out the parts of my brain that liked to replay things I wish I had not seen. Emily had been back from her journey for 3 days, and her voice messages were climbing the panic ladder step by step. Turns out Ryan did not make it home on time. There were irregularities in his passport, according to the airline. Amazing what one quick call to my buddy Logan Price, he works airport security, can do. A random secondary check can ruin a weekend getaway without anyone raising their voice. I did not chase anybody through a terminal. I did not make a scene. I just let the system take a closer look. I was nursing a cup of coffee when Mrs. Jenkins knocked. She held a casserole dish like a trophy and wore the expression of someone who had just won the neighborhood gossip lottery. "Jake, honey, I brought you some tuna noodle casserole," she said. "Figured you might need a little home cooking." Translation: I want details, and I am paying in carbohydrates. "That is kind of you, Mrs. Jenkins," I said. Such a shame about Emily. Though between you and me, she lowered her voice, I always thought she was a bit too big for her britches. Remember when she complained my wind chimes were too loud? Wind chimes. As if a little gentle music could hurt anybody's delicate nerves. I let her run. In Cedar Grove, Mrs. Jenkins is better than a public relations firm. By this evening, her version would hit every coffee counter, salon chair, and church basement within 10 miles. "Of course," she went on, watching my face. "Some folks say you pushed her there. Working all the time. Never taking her anywhere fancy. But I told Carol Price. That man worked his fingers to the bone for that woman, and this is how she pays him back." "I appreciate the support," I said. "You know what you need?" She brightened. "A good lawyer. My nephew Jason handles divorces. Took his own wife to the cleaners after she ran off with her Pilates instructor. He got the house, the car, and half her retirement. I filed it away. I will keep it in mind." After she left, I headed downstairs. Frank was working a teenager through footwork, calling out combinations with that gravelly coach voice. He had been semi-professional once, before a detached retina ended the ride. Now he trained kids and middle-aged men like me who sometimes needed something solid to hit. "Miller," he called when he saw me. "You look rough." "Feel worse," I said. "Good. Anger makes you pay attention. Get changed." 20 minutes later, I was on the heavy bag, letting 12 years of frustration travel through my fists. Every shot had a memory. Emily rolling her eyes when I tracked mud in after a winter road call. Emily springing dinner parties on me with no warning. Emily introducing me as just my husband. Like I was a talking piece of furniture she kept polished for company. During my water break, Frank wiped his hands on a towel. "Your wife called here," he said. "This morning? Wanted to know if you were acting erratic. I told her you looked pretty level, considering the stunt she pulled." He shook his head. "She seemed worried about your mental state. I suggested that if she truly cared about your well-being, she might not have run off with a muscled-up pretty boy." I laughed in spite of myself. Bet that landed well. She hung up. She will call again. People like that cannot stand losing control of the story. He was not wrong. Emily spent years shaping my image, sanding me down into her version of a safe project. The blue-collar husband with a heart of gold, rough around the edges but trainable. Something she could present to her friends. "Look how I domesticated him." That project is canceled. I am done being a display. I was walking back toward the stairs when I saw it. My truck sat in the lot with "Not Man Enough" sprayed across the hood in bright red letters. The anger hit like a shove. This was not just cheap vandalism. It was a message. Somebody wanted me to feel small, to know exactly how they measured me. Not good enough to keep my own wife. I called the police for the paper trail more than for any real shot at justice. Officer Reed rolled up about 20 minutes later, took a few photos, and worked through the usual questions. "Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt you?" My wife left me for her personal trainer, I said. Take your pick. He winced. It could be random, he said, though his tone told a different story. You should put up some cameras. And, Mr. Miller, watch your back. Domestic situations get ugly fast. When he left, I stood there looking at the hood. Fixing the paint would run about $800, which meant pulling money from the shop to cover something that never should have happened. The bigger cost was the public shame. Anyone who saw that truck would understand exactly what the message meant. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. How does it feel to lose everything? I stared at the screen while the gym bell clanged downstairs, steady as a heartbeat. For the first time all day, my anger settled into something quieter and sharper. If they thought I was finished, they were not paying attention. Emily would not text from a random number. She is too direct for games. Ryan is not clever enough for this kind of mind play. So who was pulling the strings? I saved the number and headed back upstairs. Time to stop playing defense. The answer showed up around 3 o'clock in the morning, when I could not sleep and made the mistake of scrolling through Emily's social media like a man who knows it will hurt and does it anyway. Her photo grid was a staged highlight reel of our life together. Romantic dinners, sunny trips, anniversary smiles that now felt counterfeit. The comments were a pile of fake sympathy and thinly veiled gossip. Then I hit the one that stopped me. Ashley Morgan, Emily's best friend from college and the maid of honor at our wedding, wrote, "Sometimes we have to break a few hearts to find our true selves. So proud of you for being brave enough to follow your bliss." I could hear her voice. Ashley had been whispering poison in Emily's ear for months. She never liked me, not from day one. At every dinner party and every get-together, she dropped hints about Emily settling or wasting her potential, like I was a wrong turn she took by accident. I opened Ashley's profile and started digging. There it was. About 6 months back, her own marriage blew apart. Her ex-husband, Kevin Marshall, ran off with a coworker, split the accounts, and left Ashley angry, broke, and looking for somebody else to blame. Misery does not just love company. Sometimes it recruits. The next morning, I drove to Peak Performance Fitness. Ryan's Tesla sat in the lot, gleaming white, vanity plates that read Fit King. I parked my spray-painted truck where he would have to see it and watched him through the wall of windows. He was training a middle-aged woman, standing too close, hands on her shoulders while she squatted, the same routine he ran on Emily. I waited until his session ended, then met him at the smoothie counter. Ryan was everything I am not, tall, tanned, and carved out of hours in the gym. He ordered something called a Warrior Goddess Bowl and flirted with the teenage cashier while it blended. "Ryan Cole," I said, stepping up behind him. He turned. I saw the moment he placed me. The smile slid off, and something halfway between guilt and fear took its place. "Jake." "Hey, man, about Emily." "Relax," I said. "I am not here to fight you. I am here to say thank you." "Thank you?" "For showing me who my wife really is. I gave 12 years to someone who would trade a marriage for a few social media moments. You did me a favor." His confusion was almost funny. This was not the script he expected. No raging husband, no grand scene, no chance to pose as the romantic hero rescuing the neglected wife from the brute. "That is surprisingly mature," he said. "I am a mature guy," I said. "So grateful, in fact, that I want to make sure everyone sees how happy you two are. Mind if I grab a picture for Emily's page?" Before he could answer, I snapped a photo of him holding that ridiculous bowl, eyes wide, shoulders tight, panic just starting to show. Later, I posted it to Emily's account with the caption, "When you find your soulmate, every moment is a celebration. Hashtag blessed and grateful. Hashtag new beginnings." Comments lit up fast. Her coworkers, her family, the book club, everyone watching the husband publicly applaud his wife's affair. The embarrassment landed exactly where I aimed it, and I was only warming up. That afternoon, I walked into the office of Jason Hart, Mrs. Jenkins's nephew and Cedar Grove's most aggressive divorce attorney. His place sat above the hardware store, decorated with hunting trophies and law degrees from schools that sounded like they specialized in determination more than prestige. "Aunt Linda says you need a lawyer," Jason said, leaning back. "She also says your wife is stepping out with a pretty boy trainer." "That is the situation." "How long have you been married?" 12 years. "Any children?" "No." "Property?" "House in both names." "I own my business outright." Jason's eyes sharpened. "Do you have proof of the affair?" I set the secret phone on his desk, Messages, photos, hotel confirmations. His smile clicked into place like a latch. This is good, he said. Really good. In this state, adultery affects how the assets are divided. We can make this extremely expensive for her. I do not want her money, I said. I want something else. What is that? I want her to understand what it feels like to lose everything. His look shifted from routine professional to genuinely interested. What did you have in mind? I told him about Ashley, about the public story, about how the whole thing felt staged to turn me into the dull, disposable husband while they sold their affair as a brave new chapter. Jason listened without cutting in, jotting notes, nodding now and then. You know, he said when I finished, most men in your spot just want it over with. Take the hit, split the stuff, move on. You are thinking strategically. I met his eyes. For 12 years I built a life that was supposed to hold. If Emily wants a story, I will give her one. The truth, start to finish. I fix problems. That part of me has not changed. Good, Jason said, tapping his pen on a yellow pad. Because I have a few ideas you will appreciate. We spent the next hour building something precise, perfectly lawful, and absolutely devastating. When I stepped out of Jason Hart's office into the sun over the hardware store, I felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. Not the soft kind. The kind you can plant your feet on. My phone rang as I crossed the sidewalk. Emily's name lit the screen. Jake, we need to talk. Do we? That post on my page, you cannot do things like that. It is humiliating. Humiliating for who? For both of us. People are asking questions. My boss saw it. My mother called me in tears. Sounds like a personal problem. Jake, please. I know you are hurt, but we are adults. We can handle this with maturity. Like leaving a note on the refrigerator? That brand of maturity? Silence. I want to come get my things, she said at last. When? Tonight. 7 o'clock. I will make sure the door is unlocked. After I hung up, I called Chris at the shop. I need a favor, I said. Bring Luis and Derek. We are going to have a little fun. 7 o'clock landed right on time. Emily pulled to the curb in her silver bearish motor and Huerca sedan like she was arriving at a crime scene. She brought backup. Ashley sat in the passenger seat, chin high, phone in hand, the self-appointed witness for whatever she figured I might do. From the upstairs window, I watched them talk in the car for a long 5 minutes, hands going, faces tight. Then both doors opened. Emily walked toward the house carefully, each step like she was crossing into enemy territory. Ashley hung back near the car, phone poised, ready to dial at the first sign of trouble. They did not know how I had spent my afternoon. On Jason's advice, I had changed the locks, which he confirmed was my legal right. I had also set 2 quiet recording devices, also lawful in my own home, he said. Most important, I had invited an audience. Chris, Luis, and Derek were working late, on an engine in the garage with the bay door half up. Mrs. Jenkins was somehow still watering her garden at dusk, hose in hand and eyes everywhere. And Officer Reed just happened to cruise our block, thanks to a call about suspicious activity I had placed an hour earlier. Ordinary people doing ordinary things. Watching. Emily knocked. I let the seconds stretch, then opened the door. Jake, she said, trying for a polite smile. Thank you for this. I know it is awkward. Come on in. Both of you. Ashley followed, gaze sweeping the entryway like she expected tripwires. She was all edges and fresh salon highlights, the kind that say recently divorced and still angry about it. I just need clothing and personal items, Emily said. I will not take anything that is not mine. Take whatever you want, I said. I am not attached to any of it anymore. That threw her. Emily has always been able to read me, but 12 years of marriage did not prepare her for this version. Calm, detached, almost friendly. They went upstairs. Drawers opened. Hangers clacked. Ashley whispered advice. 20 minutes later, they came down with 2 suitcases and a box of books. That is it, I asked. For now, I will come back for the rest after we have had time to process everything. Process everything, I said. Is that what we are calling it? Jake, I know you are angry. I am not angry, Emily. I am grateful. Ashley stepped forward, arms folded. Grateful. For the wake-up call, I said. For showing me what my life really was. For giving me the chance to start over with someone who actually wants to be with me. Someone. Emily's voice tightened. You are already seeing someone? Let us say I am exploring my options. Turns out there are plenty of women who value a man with a steady job and functional emotional intelligence. It was a lie, but a useful one. I watched it land exactly where I aimed, on Emily's pride, on her need to control the story, on her belief that I would wait around while she went off to find herself. Who? Ashley demanded. That is none of your business, I said, holding Ashley's stare. Although I do appreciate all the advice you gave Emily. It really helped clarify things. Color drained from her face. What advice? Oh, the greatest hits, I said lightly. Follow your bliss. Do not settle. You deserve more than a blue-collar husband who will never fit your social circle. I never said. Did you not? Emily used to tell me everything. She told me how you pushed her toward that gym, how you said she should explore her options, how you helped her decide she was wasting her life with a man beneath her station. Emily looked between us, the careful calm slipping. Ashley, what is he talking about? Nothing. He is trying to turn us against each other. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder screen. Because I have some very interesting voicemails from someone who sounds exactly like you, Ashley. Would you like to hear them? I did not have those messages, but the bluff did not need to be true. It only needed to be believable. Her mouth tightened. Her shoulders dropped. Bullseye. You have been manipulating my wife, I said evenly, feeding her dissatisfaction, cheering while she burned down 12 years because you could not stand to see her happy when your own life fell apart. The house went very quiet. In the garage, a ratchet clicked and went still. Outside, Mrs. Jenkins's hose hissed over her hydrangeas. A patrol car rolled past at the posted speed, slow enough to see everything and say nothing. And for the first time since this started, Emily looked unsure of the story she had been telling herself. That is not how this works, I said softly. Your husband left you 6 months ago, took half the money, and left you angry and alone. So you decided Emily should punch a ticket to your misery club. Misery loves company, does it not, Ashley? Emily stared at her best friend, horror growing by the second. Ashley, is this true? Do not listen to him, Ashley shot back. He is manipulating you. Like you manipulated her, I said, steady as a level on a workbench. Like you nudged her toward an affair because you could not stand seeing her in a steady marriage when yours imploded. Stop, Ashley said, but the steel was gone. You know the worst part? I went on. You did not care about Emily's happiness. You just needed her down at your level, and you got what you wanted. Congratulations. Emily sat hard on the couch, color draining from her face. Ashley, please tell me this is not true. Ashley looked around like a cornered animal, then made her choice. Emily, you were wasting your life with him. You said so yourself. You felt trapped and unfulfilled. I only helped you see what was already there. By pushing her to live authentically with a personal trainer who is cheating on half his client list, I said. That hit. What? Emily snapped. I pulled up Ryan's page on my phone and scrolled to a post from 2 days ago. That is Ryan with Miranda Peterson. Yesterday, it was Sarah Williams. Today, it is someone named Brittany. Your soulmate is running a rotation. Emily, you are not his girlfriend. You are Tuesday and Thursday. She snatched the phone and scrolled. I watched denial, then recognition, then humiliation, and finally anger cross her face. He told me I was special, she whispered. You are special, Ashley said, grasping. This does not change. It changes everything. Emily burst out. You blew up my marriage for this, for a man who is treating me like just another client. Your marriage was already over, Ashley fired back. No, it was not, Emily said, voice shaking. It was work. It was routine, but it was not over. And now it is, because I listened to you. What followed was exactly what I expected. 12 years of friendship dissolving into sharp words, old wounds, and fresh accusations, while I stood there taking mental notes. When Ashley finally stormed out, Emily was crying, and I was almost sorry for her. Jake, she said through tears. I am so sorry. I did not know. You did not want to know, I said. There is a difference. Can we fix this? Can we try again? I looked at my wife. Beautiful, successful, smart, also selfish, easy to steer, and willing to throw away what we built on the advice of a bitter friend and the attention of a pretty face with nothing behind it. No, I said. Jake, please. The papers will be filed tomorrow. Jason Hart is representing me. You should get your own lawyer. You are really going to divorce me over this? Emily, you divorced me when you walked out that door with Ryan. I am just making it official. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and felt something I did not expect: relief. The worst part was done. Now came the part one I'm good at: finishing the job. The high school reunion was Emily's personal nightmare made real. One gym packed with people she had spent 20 years trying to impress. All in one place, scorecards out. She had dreaded it for months. That made it the perfect stage for my last act. 6 weeks rolled by after our showdown. The divorce papers were in motion. The assets were working through the system. Emily's life was coming apart with the kind of math you can count on. Ryan dumped her the day after I showed her his rotation. Her job at the public relations firm started wobbling once her personal chaos bled into client calls. Ashley packed a suitcase and headed to Phoenix, cutting ties with Cedar Grove and taking her poison with her. I, on the other hand, was fine. Better than fine. The shop was busier than ever. Turns out being the wronged husband in a small-town scandal is good for business. I dropped 15 pounds training at Frank's boxing gym. I went on a few dates. Nothing heavy, just enough to remember there are women who do not see me as a project to be remodeled. The reunion took place at Cedar Grove High, in the same gym where Emily had been homecoming queen and I had been the kid backstage fixing the sound system for school plays. I saw the irony and let it sit. I showed up a little late, wearing a suit that actually fit and feeling better than I had in years. The gym wore school colors: balloons tied to folding chairs, streamers along the bleachers, round tables set on the polished court. A disc jockey spun the greatest hits from our graduation year. Emily stood near the punch bowl, smile pinned on, eyes frantic. She had lost weight too, but not from healthy habits. Stress had carved hollows in her cheeks and painted shadows under her eyes. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than my truck payment, armor against the judgment she knew was already in the room. Kelly Morgan, our old class president, slid up beside me like she had never stopped running assemblies. "You look fantastic," she said. "I heard about you and Emily. I am so sorry." "Do not be," I said. "Best thing that ever happened to me." Her eyebrows jumped. That was not the script folks expect from the wronged husband. Really? Turns out there is plenty of life after marrying the wrong person. Word moves fast in a gym full of people who remember your 10th grade haircut. By the time I crossed the basketball court, the line had settled. Jake Miller was not hiding at home, was not bitter, was not broken. He was steady on his feet and doing just fine without his cheating wife. I worked the room like a politician with a torque wrench. Handshakes, short stories, a clean version of events that cast me as the man who learned, not the man who lost. It was simple. I married young, built a life with both hands, learned my wife was not who I thought, and now I am free to find someone who values what I bring. Meanwhile, Emily was getting the other kind of attention: tilted heads, careful questions, sympathy dressed up as concern. Everyone already knew about Ryan, about the affair, about the note on the refrigerator. In a room full of people who knew us as kids, there is no hiding from what you did. Around 9 o'clock, the disc jockey tapped the microphone for quiet. "We have a special request from one of our classmates," he said. "Jake Miller would like to say a few words." I had not asked for anything, but I was not going to waste a spotlight. I walked to the microphone, looked over a sea of familiar faces, and found Emily's eyes by the punch bowl. "Thanks for coming out," I said. "It is good to see where everyone landed and to remember where we started." Polite applause. I let it fade. "Some of you know that Emily and I are getting divorced. It has been a rough stretch, but it has also been an education. I learned a lot about loyalty, about friendship, about the difference between the person you marry and the person they eventually decide to be." The air went still. Emily stared at the floor like she wished it would open. I learned some people will hold the line with you no matter what, and others will drop your hand the second a shinier option waves them over. I learned trust is not glue. You cannot patch it with apologies and promises once it is broken. And I learned something else. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the best pivot you will ever get. I let the words settle. Emily leaving me for her personal trainer knocked the wind out of me. But it also cut me loose from a marriage that had turned into a show, a life about appearances instead of joy. It revealed my real friends. It gave me the chance to start again with someone who actually wants a life with me. A small wave moved through the crowd, like a breeze crossing a wheat field. Emily went white. So tonight, I said, I want to thank Emily for the clarity, for showing me exactly who she is. Sometimes you have to lose what you were guarding to see you did not have anything worth keeping in the first place. Silence. I handed the microphone back and stepped off the little stage, letting the room figure itself out. She found me in the parking lot 20 minutes later, red dress bright under the security lights, mascara streaked. How could you do that to me? She asked. In front of everyone we know. Do what? I said. Tell the truth. You humiliated me. You did that yourself, I said. I just stopped pretending. I made a mistake. You made choices, I said. You took Ashley's advice over our marriage. You picked Ryan over me. You left a note on the refrigerator instead of having a real conversation. Those are not accidents. Those are decisions. I was confused. You were selfish, I said. There is a difference. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her standing there. Almost. You needed a villain, I said. You kept painting me as the not enough husband, the obstacle between you and your so-called authentic life. Congratulations. If you need me to wear the horns so you can sleep at night, I will wear them. I climbed into my truck and drove off, leaving her in the glow of the parking lot, finally starting to understand the cost of the story she had been telling. The next morning, Jason Hart called. Emily had agreed to our terms. No contest, no alimony, clean split. She wanted it finished. 6 months later, I sold the house and bought a small cabin on Cedar Lake. Business at Miller Auto Repair was the best it had ever been. I was in the best shape of my life, and I was seeing a woman named Laura Pierce who laughed at my dumb jokes and did not treat me like a fixer-upper project. Emily moved to Chicago, found a new job, and started over. I heard she was dating an accountant this time. Steady, quiet, nothing like Ryan. Maybe she learned something after all. As for Ashley, I never saw her again. Phoenix is far enough to reinvent yourself and find fresh people to steer. I kept the secret phone in a drawer, not as a tombstone for what I lost, but as a receipt for what I gained. Sometimes the meanest betrayal is also the cleanest gift. It shows you exactly who you are dealing with while you still have time to act. People say the best revenge is living well. Close. The best revenge is becoming the man your critics forced you to be, and realizing you like him better than the version who kept shrinking so everyone else could stay comfortable. I am not the accommodating husband anymore, the guy who fixes everyone's mess while ignoring his own. I am something new, harder, clearer, not available for misuse. Emily wanted me to be a villain in her story of self-discovery. Fine. I became the hero of my own, refused to let betrayal break me, and walked out stronger than I walked in. She created a monster. All right, just not the kind she expected.